It's true what they say. Water really is everywhere. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed, we're surrounded by this stuff. We start our day by splashing it on our face, then brush our teeth, and we gulp it down by a glassful. We cook with it, we clean with it, and we use it to cool off on a hot day. In short, we simply couldn't survive, and we couldn't live without water. And yet, for all of its abundance, water is still a mystery. Scientists have just begun to unlock the secrets, and there are so many more things that we still don't know about this vital substance. Even though we don't know everything, we do know that there are some benefits, many health benefits to drinking water. And I'm going to talk about that tonight. So stay tuned. If you are new to us, if you're new to the channel, this is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E, and the E stands for endocrinology. On this channel, I help to educate you. I help to empower you and encourage you to take charge of your life and your health. Avoid complications, live a healthy life, and go to that next level. That's what I do on this channel. And I would love to welcome you. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and put new in the comments so that we will be able to see that. And we'll welcome you with a hand clap and some music to get you here. Also, if you're new and you have questions, go ahead and put those in the comments, and make sure that you put a Q in front of that question so that I know that that's one that we need to get to. And so we're excited. If you've had a good weekend, if you had a good week, a good Monday so far, we are glad. I am glad that you are here. We've been doing a wonderful thing here on the channel. We've been talking through, and let me put that up on the screen. Yeah, we've been talking about New Start. We've been talking about New Start. So, you see it there on the screen. So, nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust. That's what we've been working through. And we are tonight talking about the third one, which is water and hydration. You hear my voice is a little gravelly, and that's because I was out. Get back to my main screen here. I was out with our Pathfinder Club. And give me just a second here, guys. Out with our Pathfinder Club, and that's what I have on. Hopefully you can see that. Let me move this mic. Right, so our No Limits, the Southern Union of our church had a camporee. And so there were about 5,000 Pathfinders. We were down in Florida and enjoyed ourselves. We are looking forward to one of our camporees that's coming up. That's going to be in 2024 in Gillette, Wyoming. That's right. So I'm looking forward to that. So all of you who were at our No Limits Camporee, that's what it was called. We were glad to see you guys, all you guys that we met, all the new friends, and all the wonderful things that we learned there. Our kids had a wonderful time. But in the middle of all that, you hear my voice, I think, sleeping under the tent. Now, when I say camping, we were doing camping, right? We were in the tent. We took about 13 kids down, and the counselors. And so I was in a tent. That's right, guys. And it rained. Was it the first night? Anyway, one of those nights it rained, and it was kind of damp. And of course, if you've been camping before in the morning, even though we were in Florida, it was cold. So you get up and anyway. So I had a great time, and I'm really looking forward to future camps. Right. So if you are out there, if you're watching this, you're a camper. If you've not been to one of our camporees before, you want to make sure that you are getting ready for 2024. It's going to be in Gillette, Wyoming. So let's talk about what we're doing tonight. What do we talk about what we're doing tonight and what we have been doing over the last several weeks? So we took a break, and we did If you remember Dr. Meigs, and we did Donna Green Goodman last week, and we're talking about breast cancer. And so this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we want to just continue to give a shout out to all those champions, those survivors, those who are even now fighting with breast cancer. Next month is Diabetes Awareness Month, and so we'll come back and we'll talk to you about what we're going to do there. We have some special guests, not necessarily related to diabetes. We're going to be doing some other things for diabetes, but we have some guests who are coming on who are going to be talking to us about various things. So keep an eye and keep an ear out for those. So tonight we're talking about the third component in this New Start. Remember, we're using New Start, and let's put that back up on the screen. We're using New Start for the acronym, right? New Start. So nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust. There is a program out there called New Start, and they started in the 1970s, I believe, and they have a complete structure that they do where they go through each of these segments. We're using it for the acronym as we discuss these components of how do we take care of this body. If you remember back in August, we talked about growing the mind, getting better. How do we redesign ourselves? And now we're coming back to talk about how do we take care of a body. We've already done nutrition, right? Excellent one. So we talked about all the components there that we needed to have for good nutrition. We talked about exercise and what makes up a good exercise program. And so tonight we're talking about what are the things that we need to know when it comes to water. And when we talk about water, we're actually talking about hydration, right? That's what we really are talking about. And so let me go ahead and pop this screen up so that you guys see. So health benefits of water, health benefits of water. And you'll see four there. You'll see four. There are a lot more. Let me say that. There are a lot more. And I wanted to focus on these because these are probably ones that we don't talk about a lot. And you'll see there. Hydration. So I'm calling that general hydration. Digestion. Toxic removal, so toxins, removal of toxins, and then skin, joint, and muscle. And then hold on, we're going to have another special one that I'm going to pop up here in a minute after we get through these. So stay tuned for that. So let's go to it. Let's go to it. So when we talk about general hydration, well, remember that water is essential for life. About 60% of our body is made up of water, and perhaps 90% of the brain. And as humans, we can go for weeks without food, but generally speaking, most healthy adults can probably survive maybe 3 to 5 days without water. And if you're living in a hot climate and you're out doing things, that even is shorter. So are there some real benefits to drinking water, drinking enough water? Right. We talked about some of the outward things, right? So we talked about brushing your teeth and bathing and so forth, but are there actually health benefits to drinking water? And the answer to that is yes. The answer to that is yes, there are benefits to drinking enough water. If you remember, we talked a little bit about this word homeostasis when we discussed exercising. And we said that when we exercise, there are these things that are going on in the body. There are these processes that begin happening. And the body's goal is to get us back to this thing called homeostasis, particularly when we are doing non-training, right? So those times where we just go out, we get a burst of energy, or somebody convinced us, hey, let's go exercise. And so we run out and we exercise, right? And it's not a consistent thing. So the body is moving, and it's like, okay, we need to make some changes. The body's talking to itself. We need to make some changes because we are not used to this. So the heart and the lungs and the muscles and all those things, they start making changes to get you back to homeostasis. Okay. Now, when we talk about hydration is a process of making sure there's adequate fluids in the body. We said that 60%, and sometimes people say more, of the body is made up of water. So if we don't replenish that water, then we begin losing it. And so all the processes that are going on in the body don't work well. So there are a lot of enzymes. So enzymes are things in the body that makes the body function the way it's supposed to. Remember, what did we say the body's job was? To keep us alive, to stay alive, right? So essentially, it is in the process of finding ways to make sure that we are staying alive. That's what the body does. And part of having good hydration is keeping that in mind, or doing those things that are needed. So getting those enzymes working. So let's jump into hydration. So if you don't have enough fluids in your body, your blood pressure drops. And this is a simple one, right? I'm giving you an example here. So the blood pressure begins to drop. If the blood pressure begins to drop, what do you think you feel? You can feel fatigue. Why? Because if the blood pressure is dropping, then the blood that's supposed to be going to the different organs doesn't get there. And so you begin feeling fatigued. And to prevent that, right? Remember this word homeostasis, the body wants to get back to normal. The heart begins pumping harder and faster, because it wants to maintain the same amount of fluid. So now, because the fluid has dropped in the body, the heart has to work faster to maintain the same flow, right? Right? So it's pushing more, it's pumping harder, it's going faster to try to get blood to those areas. Why does it need blood? Because it needs oxygen. And oxygen, right, and glucose or sugar, those are the two things that the body uses in order to function. So if we're not getting enough oxygen, then we begin to feel fatigue. We can have headaches, for example. Right? We can have muscle cramps. Sometimes people will talk to me about having muscle cramps, and I'll say to them, yeah, the reason you're probably having muscle cramps is because you're not adequately hydrated. Right? Those Charlie horses that you have at night. Yeah. And I want you to track it. For those of you who are having some muscle cramps, muscle Charlie horses, look at those. Think about what you did that day. Were you out in the garden? Did you drink enough water while you were out there? Were you out walking? And right? So all those things that we do, are we taking in enough fluids? Right? So headaches, fatigues, muscle cramps, kidney problems. Right? So dehydration can actually cause acute, and we don't call it acute renal failure anymore, but right? So we call kidney problems, right? So you can have renal failure in the acute setting if you're dehydrated. So people come in the hospital, and if they're not drinking enough, this is particularly a problem for some of our elderly patients, right? So our older patients who are not really mindful of taking in enough fluids. People who are, maybe they live alone and they're not able to get to, they may have hurt themselves. And so maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe they're in a bed. I mean, they can move around, but they're in some pain. So they don't readily get up and go get fluid. And so, they begin getting dehydrated. Some of those people can have kidney stones if you're not taking in enough fluids. Kidney stones can happen as well. And so now we're just talking about general hydration around the body. Having enough fluid in your body helps to regulate your body temperature. Right? So if you're outside, or even if you're inside in the summertime, right, and you're heating up, if you have enough fluid, that fluid helps to regulate your body temperature. So that's general hydration. And there's so many other things that we can go into when we talk about general hydration around the body. The next one is digestion. Right? So digestion. When we eat food, the body extracts from the food the nutrients that it needs. And so the fluids that we put in helps to lubricate that process. You can think of, and I'm going to use this example. You could think of like a food processor, right? When you put food and you're grinding it up, or even if you're doing just juicer, right? When you put the food in there, whatever it is, and you grind it up, if you don't have enough moisture in it, then what is it like? It's really pasty or dry, right? And if you're doing a juicer, of course, you take the fluids out of it, and what do you have left? The pulp and all the cellulose that's there, right? So the fluids that we drink helps to lubricate that process. So So it takes out all of those nutrients, and then that food, the waste product, starts to move through the body to the colon. So that's waste, and that's getting ready to be excreted, right? Well, it's in your colon, and if you're not adequately hydrated, the body resorbs or takes in more fluid out of the waste. So it continues to pull fluid out. And what do you think that causes? It causes constipation. So that's why we say to people, hey, you've got to make sure you're taking in an adequate amount of fluid, because if you don't do that, in the colon, the waste products now become, or the stool, that's what it's going to become, let's say that word, it becomes much more solid, and it becomes harder. And so now we begin having constipation. And if we're not having enough hydration, that becomes a big problem. There are people that are out there, and you may be watching right now, and you may be experiencing some constipation. Look to see if you're taking in enough fluid. And if you're not, then that can be a place where you can improve, right? So sometimes we're looking for, I don't want to say big fixes. We're looking for something, maybe something medically is wrong. Well, it's not probably a medical issue, is that we're not getting enough hydration. We're not getting enough fluids in. And then toxins. This is a big one. Toxins. Because toxins, there are two main organs, and I say main organs, we're going to throw a small one in there again. So the two major organs in the body that help with detoxification are the liver and the kidney. And let's take the kidney, for example. So water is the thing that's inside, right? So the fluid that we have, it's everywhere. So it's moving through the blood cells, it's washing through the blood cells, right? Blood partially is made up of water. In our tissues, right? In our tissues, there's fluid there. And so that fluid is a wash. And so it is helping to run things through the body, basically rinse it out. So you could think of perhaps a river, and either we're putting stuff in the river or we're taking stuff out of the river. Okay. And I'm gonna give you an example. So the kidneys filter and excrete urine. They filter urine, they excrete urine. And so as the urine, the fluid is going to be excreted, the body dumps stuff into it, right? Toxins, and those things are being flushed out. Or it takes things out of the urine. Those are things that we want to keep. And the urine that we end up with is the process, right? The sum of whatever we got rid of or whatever we want to keep. And so that's what the urine is. And you can tell if somebody has, and we'll talk about concentrated urine here in a little bit. So if the urine is really concentrated, that's a lot of stuff that's going in there, right? And that may be an indication of some other things. Does that make sense so far? Right. So we're putting, so the kidneys are filtering. So fluid is going into the kidney, and it's eventually going to come out as urine. And the more toxins, that's why sometimes we'll tell people to drink water, right? So when you take certain medications, we say drink a lot of water with it. First to get it down, right? And then it helps to flush you out. For instance, when you get a flu shot or vaccination, sometimes we'll tell people, hey, make sure you're drinking enough fluids. So what's happening is that we are flushing the system. So if you don't have enough water, if you don't have enough fluids on board, if you're not adequately hydrated, that becomes an issue. As the water passes through the kidneys, various amounts of different substances, whether it's some medication or some toxin that's in the body or something that is normal in the body. For instance, when you exercise, you get muscle breakdown, right? That's what we want, because those guys who are bodybuilding, or even if you're doing toning, right, as those muscles are being used, they're breaking down. And now we have those, remember we talked about protein in one of our shows, right? Those proteins are in the body, and now we've got to flush those out. When you exercise, you also generate lactic acid. What do you think happens to the lactic acid? Well, the water, the fluid, the hydration, right, what we have in our system flushes that out. And if you don't have adequate hydration, that becomes an issue. Not only do you overheat, but we also have acidosis that can happen. And then those proteins that should be excreted, right, with adequate water, with adequate fluid, they don't get excreted. And they can cause kidney problems now. All right? As a simple example, think about when you're washing dishes or washing anything, right? The more water you put over that thing, the easier it is to run the dirt or grime or food particles or whatever is on the dish. It's easier to get those out. The less water you have, the more difficult that can be. Does that make sense? All right. Yeah, hopefully it does. And then let's talk about skin, joints, and muscle. Skin, joints, and muscle. When we talk about these guys, I want you to think of every cell in your body needs fluid and needs water. Every cell in your body. But especially important to that are your skin, your joints, and your muscle. So your skin, you can imagine if we're not adequately hydrated, then the skin becomes wrinkled, right? It becomes tight. It becomes drier. And so aging, your face looks like you're more aged. Your skin looks older. It's not as plump, if you will, to use it, right? It's very flat and very dry. That's because there's not adequate hydration. Your joints. Well, let's talk about muscles first. So muscles, and we just talked about the fact that if you're not having enough hydration, then the muscles can overheat. So when you're out there, even if you're not a triathlete or you're not running marathons, if you're doing normal things in your environment, if you're not adequately hydrated, you can have problems with muscles because they need lubrication. And then now if you're exerting yourself and you're not having enough fluids, then the lactic acid is not being washed out. And then if we think about the joints, right? So your joints, as you're walking, your joints are absorbing all of that, all the pressure as you're moving around. And so water, the fluids, helps to lubricate and helps to cushion those joints. Right, we've got these bursa, so these sacs that we have in some of our joints, right, that help the joints move, right? Guess what's in there? Yeah, fluid, and it helps to make those move. The vertebrae, your spinal column, you know what's in a lot of those? Yeah, fluid. And when you get dehydrated, then the fluid in those decreases. And when you walk, there's a lot more trauma that can happen. And sometimes you can have pain in different areas because there's not an adequate amount of fluid in those vertebrae. Right. So all those things happen because there's not enough water. There's not enough fluid in the system. Right. And I know I keep saying water and fluid and hydration. I'm using all those words to mean the same thing. There's not enough in the body. There's not enough in the system. And so having enough helps with all of those things, right? Basically washing, as we talked about, for instance, with the toxins. And then, so that's hydration. That's digestion. That's toxins. That's skin, joint, and muscle. And then I said I was going to give you an extra one, and you'll see that pop up on the screen there. So medical conditions. Now, there are lots of things, and there's so much that we can talk about here, but I'm gonna pick three or four. Number one, diabetes. When we have adequate hydration, we can lower blood sugars. I'm gonna just pause there. Remember we said there are almost 500 million people on the planet that have diabetes. 337 million people in the United States alone. Almost 100 million people in the United States that have pre-diabetes and have blood sugars that are higher than normal. So having adequate hydration will help to lower those blood sugars. I can't tell you the number of times that we've seen people who come in and their blood sugars are high, right? So there are 200s, there are 180, there are 250. And we talk to them about going back, and we don't change anything. We don't change what they're eating. We don't change their medication. We don't change anything else. And we say, make sure that you're getting enough fluids, get enough water in. And people say, well, I'm drinking coffee, or I'm drinking non-sugary drinks, usually with caffeine. And you know what caffeine is? Caffeine is a diuretic. It's a water pill, essentially. So you're drinking the fluid, but a lot of that gets thrown out. And so essentially you're not drinking as much as you think you are. But having enough fluids in can lower blood sugar. So that's one. How about if you're working on your weight? If you're working on your weight and you're drinking an adequate amount of water, then you feel fuller than you normally would. Yeah. And so that can help with the feeling of hunger. And sometimes when we're dehydrated, we feel hungry. That's a big one. When we're dehydrated, we feel hungry. And getting enough fluids in can help with that. And then there are studies that have shown that if you drink an adequate amount of water, if you drink about 4 ounces of water before a meal, you can lower your risk of heart disease. That's a huge one, right? So look at that. So the number one cause of death in the United States is heart disease. Drinking water can decrease that. The number one cause of heart disease in the United States, diabetes. Drinking enough water can lower that. One of the risk factors for diabetes and heart disease is obesity, and drinking enough water can help with that. Now, like I told you, there's so many more things that we can talk about there, but those are key ones, guys and gals. I love it. And having enough hydration helps with all of that. So the question is, okay, what do we do? What are some tips that we can use? Because I don't like water, right? People say that. I don't like water. I don't drink water. It doesn't taste good. Yeah. So we'll come back and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. This is a good place for us to do our thought of the day. So our thought of the day is this, and this comes from Eleanor Roosevelt. It takes as much time to dream as it takes to plan. It takes as much time to dream as it takes to plan. What does that mean? It means that sometimes we spend a lot of time dreaming about what we want to do. And you guys know what a dream is, right? It's simply something that you want to do that you haven't put things in place to do. I want to start a business, and you dream about that business, right? You spend your time and you think about the business. You think about what it would be like to have the business, what you would look like in the business, what the business would do, but you don't spend the time putting in place the things that you need to run the business or to start the business. But the same amount of time that you're using to dream about what you can do, it takes the same amount of time to get a piece of paper, to sit down and write out, okay, what is my plan to get to that business? What do I need? What is the idea of the business, first of all, right? A business plan. And getting to a business plan, I mean, that's a little bit more formal, but and it doesn't have to be there. But having a plan, what am I going to do? Eventually you're going to need one, right? So you're going to have to get a business plan. But what are my steps for this business? You want to be a coach. You want to be a motivational speaker. You want to be an author. You want to be a physician, a lawyer, a nurse. You want to be a pastor. And you dream about those things. But what is your plan to get those things or to be in those things? So the same amount of time that you're sitting down, that 5 minutes that you just spent dreaming about it, the 5 minutes you spent about dreaming about being on YouTube, about starting a show, yeah, you could have spent those 5 minutes writing down, okay, these are the steps that I need to take to be able to be there. The same amount of time that it takes to dream about something is the same amount of time it takes to plan. So let's not dream all the time, right? So you're going to have something that you want. That's where it starts. But don't stay there. Begin working on the plan, because when you work on the plan, right, now we can start finding something else, right? We've got that now. Boom, we're there. We're moving. We're getting there. We've got the business. We've got the book. We've got the audience. We've got the channel. We've got the YouTube. We've got this also works for relationships, right? So you're dreaming about getting married. You're dreaming about marrying that person. Okay, what's the plan? Because we're moving. We're not spending time where we are, right? We're moving. We're improving, right? We worked on our mind. We're working on our bodies now, right? We're going to come back with another series talking about some other things that we're working on. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So the same amount of time that it takes to dream is the same amount of time that it takes to plan. And my challenge to you now is to change from dreaming and begin working on your plan. And that's our thought for today. All right. We are back. We're back, and we're talking about the health benefits of water. So the question is, what do we do, right? What do we do? Do you have some ideas, some suggestions, something, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So no matter what your goals are, right? We know that having enough water is beneficial. So how much water should we drink? Let's start there. How much water should we drink? And there are lots of places, if you read lots of things, you'll see all kinds of recommendations. But the generally accepted recommendation is that you should have half of your body weight in ounces of water. What does that mean? You take your weight, whatever it is, in pounds. So you're 100 pounds, and you do half of that in water. So that's 50 ounces of water. If you're 150 pounds, 75, 200, 100 ounces, right? So remember that 128 ounces is a gallon. 128 ounces is a gallon. So use that kind of as your reference. You can, do it in half so that you can calculate where you need to be. All right, so that's 1 gallon. The next thing is, how do we determine if we're adequately hydrated? A lot of people say, well, I drink when I'm thirsty. Well, the fact is that if you drink when you're thirsty, you are already way dehydrated. Right? So what you want to do is not wait until you're thirsty before you drink. Because if you're mildly dehydrated, you're probably not going to feel as thirsty. And when you do feel thirsty, you're way behind the 8 ball. So don't use your thirst. Now, there are some people who have medical conditions. And let me back up and let me put that at the top. If you have a medical condition where you have been restricted to your fluid, talk to your physician. So these are people who may have renal failure. They're on dialysis. People who have heart failure and they've been restricted. People who have any kind of diabetes insipidus, SIADH. So there are some things there that you've got to take into consideration. Okay. So this is for folks who don't have those issues. If you do have those issues, of course, talk to your healthcare provider, right? All right. So don't use thirst as a indicator of whether you should drink or not. The next thing is the color of your urine can give you a good indication of whether you're hydrated. So your urine, if your urine looks, if it's dark, then that means that you're very, very dehydrated. Your urine should be very clear. It should be almost as clear as the stuff you're drinking. And when I say drinking, I'm talking about water. Right? Very light, straw colored. Very, very light. If it's darker, that means that you're not adequately hydrated. If you are managing your weight, here's a good one. If you drink about 4 ounces of water prior to eating, right, about a half an hour before, then you don't eat as much. Love that one, right? You don't eat as much. 4 ounces a half an hour before you eat will decrease the amount of food that you eat. If you don't like water, try to gauge. Use a water bottle to help you gauge the water intake so that you know where you are. I love cold water, right? So right now we came back from camping and I've got one of those big 5-gallon igloos that we brought with us that had ice and water. It's on the counter. I'm drinking that. Right? We had that on the truck as we were coming back. I didn't throw it away. It's good water. And it's up there. I'll see how long it takes. It wasn't 5 gallons, by the way. It's a 5-gallon thing, but everybody was filling up from the spout. So I think it's maybe half or less now because I've been drinking last night and today. If you don't normally drink water, start slow and build up. You don't have to get to it. If your goal is, 60 ounces, 100 ounces, and right now you drink one bottle, which is 16 ounces, one of those, right, regular size bottles. Don't go from 16 to 60, right? And because if you try to do that and you fail, you're like, oh, well, I'm not doing that, right? Start slow. If you like cold water, try using ice chips, right? Get a glass, get a cup, fill it with ice, and use that. A lot of people like the texture of ice. They don't like the texture of water, or it doesn't feel good or taste good to them. Yeah, use some ice. And that will help. Right? So those are just some simple things that you can do. Love it. Love it. So we don't know everything about water, but we do know having adequate amounts of water is essential. My challenge to you is to work on improving your water. Work on improving the intake of your water. Use a bottle. Use chips, ice chips. Use an alarm. Set an alarm. Yeah, that's one. Set an alarm in your phone. Get a buddy who's going to help you do this. Accountability. Improving your water intake can help you lose weight, improve your skin complexion, increase your energy. And it's also a great way to flush out toxins from your body. So if you're looking for a way to feel better, feel healthier, look better, right, decrease aging, start drinking more water. There's no doubt that you'll be happy you did it. I'm so excited that you're here. Remember, we are working through New Start. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust. This is our third installment, and we're glad that you're here. Remember, we're working on improving our water intake. That's what we're doing. If you've not already done so, please go out there. If you like this video, if you're getting some benefit from this series that we're doing, send this to a friend. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so that you'll be notified when we do more content. Share it with a friend. Let them know what we're doing. Come on back and watch our future videos. We've been doing some shorts. If you've not seen them, go out and watch them. People have been getting some benefit from that. They've been sending us messages about how impactful those are. If you did not go back or if you've not done so, go back and look at our videos that we did in August, right? That entire series, we did 30 videos in August about how to improve ourselves, how to build a new us, how to time manage, how to set goals, how to live intentionally. So many different things that we worked on in the month of August. And then throughout the month of September, we did shorts. We're doing shorts this month. Come back. We're doing something as we go through. We're doing things each month, right? And next month, like I said, is going to be Diabetes Awareness Month. We'll do some things there. I'm having fun. Let me say that. Let me drink some water first. I'm having fun learning, communicating, interacting with you guys and gals. So continue to come on back. We love to be involved. I love to be involved with you. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. And the E stands for endocrinology. Here on this channel, I help to empower you. I educate you. I encourage you to take charge of your life, your health, avoid complications, live a healthy, fulfilling life, and go to the next level. And I look forward to seeing you again next week at our next video, our next episode right here at 7 o'clock Central on our channel. Thank you. Let's get some music. Let's get out of here, and we'll see you next week. Good night.